The topic of our project is GST calculator and invoice generator. The partner with me along in this project is Ranjit. So our project is basically about a calculator which calculates the GST as per the information provided by the user. The information can be like exclusive GST or inclusive GST, or select any particular tax slab like 5%, 12%, 28%. And the user enters the details, the amount, and selects particular details provided on the menus, and the GST is calculated and displayed on the screen. The other function also involves generation of bills, like the user enters the customer details and the items bought by the customer along with the price and the quantity of the items bought. The app the app calculates the GST and the total amount to be paid by the customer. So, and it creates an invoice regarding the same. Enter details used by the user. Invoice contains all the details like the total amount, GST used, GST applied, and all the items which are purchased, the quantity and the cost of each item. Total description of the products purchased are displayed in the invoice. The later on, the user can also create a PDF copy of the invoice and store it in the device storage. Mm. Then the user can also call the customer. The user has also the option of marking the bill as paid or unpaid. And then the user can delete the bills or even add any item even after generation of an invoice. So the user can check all the bills paid and unpaid. He can keep track of whichever bills are paid and whichever bills are yet to be paid. He can so on contact even the customer regarding the payment of the bills. So moving on to the project, like it starts with the login screen where the user enters his credentials. So I am already a registered user. So if the user is not a registered user, he can register it through the sign up page. As I am already a registered user, I am going to log in. So this is the home screen where we have like four options, four functions which the user can check. This is the first function where the user can learn about GST, like a small detail about general detail about what GST is, the different types of GST and why they are applied and by whom are these GST applied and collected. So the next option is of GST calculator where we can enter the amount and select any options whichever the user wants, and the GST is calculated. So the GST amount in the total given sum is this much, and even the inclusive GST can be calculated. So this is how it works. So this is the basic function of GST calculator where the amount is entered and the user can choose between the options of exclusive, inclusive, and the different GST rates. So the next function is of new bill where the user, upon pressing the new bill button, the user can enter the details of his business or the franchise which he owns. So let's give it a name of. So here in this page, the details like the business name, the address, and the contact number of the business is to be entered, which will be later be displayed on the PDF copy of the invoice which will be generated. So the password which is to be set here is the it's like an in-app pin for like verification purposes. Uh, there are certain operations which can be performed within the app which require password verification. So let's set a password. So setup is successful. Later on, we have to enter the customer name who has been purchasing from you. So the name of the customer, the phone number entered here will be later useful to call the customer. So in this page, we can enter the details like the items purchased by the customer by mentioning the name of the item, the price of the item, the quantity purchased, and the tax slab applicable to the item. So let's give it as chips price per item 30, quantity being 50, tax slab of 5%, add item to bill. Any number of items can be entered into the bill. It's up to the user upon how many items he wants to enter. Item as Maggie, price per item being 50, quantity being 15, tax slab, let's change it to 12%, add item to bill. On pressing finish, the invoice is generated wherein you can see the details like the price of the item, the name of the item, quantity, rate of the item, tax value, tax slab, CGST and SGST. So every detail about the amount entered, everything will be displayed here, including the GSTs and the total GST applicable and the total amount after the tax. So this is the invoice generated. Later on, the user has options to like mark as paid, like if the customer has paid the purchase, then be marked as paid. So this is where the password is required to confirm that the payment has been done. So the payment is complete. So the bill is paid. So it is marked as a paid bill. Later on, you could delete the bill. You can call the customer if required, add more items to the bill, or save to PDF. So this is how the bill looks in the PDF format. It contains the details of your business, the address, name, and phone number, including all the details of the invoice like the name, rate, quantity, tax, and all. That PDF copy is stored in the device itself. Add more items on. Then we have the recent bills, wherein you can check all the bills which are paid or unpaid bills. So this is a section where you can see all the unpaid bills, and this is where all the paid bills are displayed. You can press on the bill and check all the details whichever they has purchased, and all the previous options which I mentioned before is also available here. So you can again create a new bill here. As I have already registered to it, it does not ask for the password setup again. So if you are a new user, a password setup is required. Uh, so that is the basic function of the app to calculate the GST, to generate a bill, and even store it as a PDF format, to check all the paid and unpaid bills and keep track of all the payments which are to be done and which are not done yet. So here Gerard hasn't paid the bill, so you could call the number is already available here. You can make a call and ask the customer to pay the bill. And this is the sign out button which logs out of the page. A new user can register here. So moving on to the database, moving on to the code. So this is the code used, wherein you have the new bill activity, the home page, login activity, register activity, then the database, wherein the database used is SQLite, and SQLite, the purpose to use SQLite is that the database generated is stored in the device itself and not transmitted to any third-party server or any other device. The advantage of this is that any businessman or any investor would not like his details of purchase or his details of sales to be gone public or to be shared with anyone else. So the details of his sales and the details of the purchase of the customer are stored privately in his own device, and it adds more security to his data. So SQLite is used, and then we have like two databases which are contacts.db, and the database is GST bills database. So in contacts.database, the credentials of the user is stored, and in the database GST bills database, the details of the bills are stored. You can have a look at the database. So this is the contacts database where the credentials of the user is stored. And moving on to this is the bills database where the details of the customer, his phone number, bill date, and bill status is stored. And each bill has its own table wherein the items purchased are stored. The bill which I had recently generated was the chips, the Maggie bill, which was, so the details of the that that purchase is stored in this table. So details of every all this data is stored in the person, in the user's device itself. So there is no any. So it provides more security to the user and improving the image of the business and all. So this is the database. Then these are all the activities. Save PDF activity, which helps in saving the data into PDF. Then we have this set up password activity where the in-app password is to be set up. Uh, Checking on to the XML files. So these are all the XML files where in the designing of the app has been done. So this is the detail page. This is the calculator page. Login page. And all the other pages have been set up here. So these are all the items used within the XML files. So yeah, that's it. That is our project of GST calculator and invoice generator. Thank you.